Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Eve Galanter, and I would like to introduce Julia Matthews, running for Alder in District 12. As we begin, Julia, please give an opening statement about the educational, vocational, and civic experience you have, which prepares you for this office, and why you are running for Alder.
Great. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm a lifelong Madison resident. I have strong ties in District 12. I have been a co-chair of my neighborhood association, and through that we did outreach. We did a mailer outreach to everyone in the neighborhood to let them know about our association and to submit to get feedback with a survey. And so that was great. We got to learn about what people loved about the neighborhood and who's here. And I went to UW-Madison. I have an undergraduate degree in science, and I currently work at UW-Madison supporting clinical research. And so with that professional experience, what I do in my day-to-day work is I have to talk to all the scientists and the people who implement the research, as well as the people who work face-to-face with participants and take in all of their feedback and all of their requirements and needs for each new study. And then I take all of that together and I create the database that gets used based off of everyone's differing needs and wants. I kind of bring something together that works for everyone. And so I do think that that's really a good experience that can apply to the constituent services and the work of being an alder. Um, I also was on the housing strategy committee that the city had, and they put out the housing report on affordability. Um, with that, I learned a lot more about how housing works in Madison and what the city can do and what the city is doing. Um, but I'm really running to represent the people in District 12. I care a lot about Madison and I want to make it a good place for everyone to live. And with the growth that's happening already and that's coming in the future, I really want to make sure that existing people who live here are not getting pushed out of the city due to high cost and lack of housing options. And I also want to make sure that we're really careful as a city with this growth to make sure that we're not making existing disparities in the city worse, but taking that as an opportunity to really tackle those for the future of Madison.
How would you evaluate the city's current efforts to address homelessness and increase the amount of affordable housing? Are there additional steps the city should take to address these issues?
Yeah, so with the affordable housing, we have an affordable housing fund, and there's also an effort with TIF districts to use some of that money as well to support affordable housing. And that was a really big question of the Housing Strategy Committee that I was on. I was part of the rental housing subcommittee, so that really focused on apartments and renting. Um, and definitely the thing that the city needs to focus most on is putting the limited money that they have towards 30% or less AMI units or other income restricted units, but especially those at the lowest level are going to have the most impact for folks. And then along with that, the only other way that the city really can impact housing currently is to help make it easier for folks to build housing, just make sure that we are building as much as we can in the places that are good to have new housing. And that'll help as we begin to have enough housing for the people who live here. That will help to address some of those middling costs. But again, the lowest income levels are really going to need that subsidized housing that the city Affordable Housing Fund works to support. And then for homelessness, I am really looking towards the Bartolon shelter that's going to be opening in District 12. That's going to be the first purpose-built homeless shelter in Madison. And I remember the proceedings back a few years ago. There was a different site for the homeless shelter, and that one did not pass Common Council, and they kind of had to go back to the drawing board. So I think we're far enough along now here that that won't be an issue, but I really feel committed to making sure that this opens and that this is able to provide services for folks that are not getting it currently.
What actions or programs would you support to enhance public safety in Madison? And in particular, what is your position on the use of body cameras by Madison police officers, given the recent demonstration project?
Yeah, I really support the CARES program a lot. I love CARES. And I really appreciate the need for public safety and the need for transparency and accountability to kind of, bring together that relationship between public safety and the people in Madison. I have looked at the report that was put out on the body cam pilot. It's pretty long, so I would have to, if something came to council, I would have to dive deeper into it. But my main concern with implementing body cameras right now is the recent budget referendum that we just had and the ongoing budget structural issues that the city has, because the report, showed that it is a pretty costly thing to implement body cameras for a city that is as big as Madison, with a police force as big as Madison's. And most of that cost would have to be paid by the city somehow. And the actual report didn't quite go into what the costs would be for maintenance of those body cams, as well as the storage for the video. So that's another area where I would need to do a little more research just to see what those additional costs would be. But I I just have concerns with the overall cost now. But I am very committed to increasing that transparency, and I would want that to be a true transparency for the people of Madison if it were to be implemented.
In the wake of the recent referendum to increase property taxes, what are your priorities for the city budget?
My priorities are really making sure that we're able to maintain the great level of services that make Madison such a nice place to live, but we really need to find other ways to fund those services moving forward so that we're not having to raise property taxes again. I want to look for more federal funding and grants. I would look for more, hopefully in the near future, more state funding, but I know that's not guaranteed. And then with that, also working with other experts on staff and other more experienced alders to find places where there could be efficiencies made to lower costs of existing programs. Um, but yeah, I mean, libraries, I was very involved with the public outreach from the public side of the last year for the budget situation. And so I heard a lot of what other people care about. We did that also with the neighborhood association. And I know libraries are big. Public safety is important for folks, and housing and trash and all that. We want to keep our services, I think, which is kind of what was shown with the referendum too.
How should Madison balance the need for development with other concerns such as traffic, historic preservation, and conservation of natural areas?
We definitely need a lot more housing in Madison, all across the city, but I do think that it's very important to go about creating that housing in a way that is reasonable and sustainable and brings in the community for feedback. I think that there definitely is a good balance that we can find where we're still preserving um, the like conservation, um, green areas, the wetlands, the many existing parks that we have, and where we're also not, you know, tearing down people's homes to build more houses or more apartments. I think there's a lot of places, especially in District 12, where there's opportunities to add more housing that'll be on that bus rapid transit line too. So that helps to encourage folks to take the bus, hopefully lower traffic in that way. And then by finding those good spots um, that are infill to create more housing in, it will reduce the suburban sprawl where there will be more and more people who have to drive into the heart of the city and would increase traffic that way. So I'm definitely, I know a lot of people in District 12 care a lot about conservation. I care about the wildlife and the great spaces that we have, and I want to definitely support those. And then, yeah, historic preservation. I think it's important to keep that history, and it will be important to again find those available spaces that aren't infringing on that to get more housing in some of those neighborhoods where the historic neighborhoods are really some of the best neighborhoods with many of the best amenities. So I don't want people to be totally kept out of there, but
What are the most critical issues that you see facing the people in your district, and what would you propose to address these?
so definitely in District 12, there's already a lot of new housing that's being built in District 12. The Oscar Mayer and the Hartmeyer area are getting new projects as well as a lot more along East Washington as well. Um, and so I think that there will definitely be ways in the future where we're going to need to kind of uplift those new areas to make sure that a good community is like forming there. And that'll kind of take impact or input from the other neighbors and like a really good proactive outreach from the alder to make sure that those areas are being set up to thrive. I think District 12 also has a lot of traffic and pedestrian safety related concerns kind of across the board. There's a lot of very fast streets for cars, really all throughout the district. And so as we create more of an environment that is wanting to promote walkability and being connected with our neighbors, even across those uh, big traffic streets, to make sure that we're doing what we can to also keep those pedestrians safe. And then the other big thing in this area is the airport. There is a lot of noise that comes from the airport, both from the F-35s and just the regular airport noise. And so noise mitigation is definitely something that's important to this district. And especially if there's any new housing being built right next to the airport, it will need to incorporate um, noise mitigation.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
One of the things that has excited me the most about being an alder is the community outreach, getting to talk to people where they're at their houses, knocking doors, or, you know, in a meeting or through email. I'm very excited to be there for the district and to be able to be a resource and put out consistent communication to the district in that way. And I think there's a lot of really great projects coming in the district as well that I'm excited about, like the Imagination Center, new library at Rheindal. And I know there's the expansion at the Warner Park Recreation Center and the public market that'll be opening soon. So there'll be a lot of new services coming to the district as well, which I'm excited about.
I want to thank Julia Matthews for speaking with us and thank the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone that primary election day is Tuesday, February 18th, and the general election is Tuesday, April 1st. Every election is important. Please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.